Hey, what's going on, guys? Raj here. Hope you guys are well. I've got a video for you guys today where I'm going to be showing my fragrances that I've worn this week, scents of the week. Just FYI, if you want to check out some older videos in this series, all you need to do is go to my channel, click playlists, and they're all there. I quite like doing this type of video because you get to show lots of fragrances in one video, and gives you guys an idea of how my week has been in terms of fragrances. Before I get into the main part of the video, I recently did a video where I am doing a Q&A. So if you guys have any questions for me, fragrance related, some personal things, I don't mind answering to an extent. Leave a question down below, either in this video or maybe the Q&A video, and I'll put out my answers in a week or so. So yeah, let's kick things off with Monday. And I started off the week with quite a strong fragrance, and it's actually a fragrance that I typically don't wear to work, but I wanted to be a little bit more risky because I was, I guess you could say, inspired by a recent video that I've watched. This particular fragrance is from the brand Roja Parfum, and it is part of his Oud collection, the original trio. And this one is simply just called Oud. You can see the color of the juice. Okay, so Roger Dove has quite a good YouTube channel where, and recently he put a video out where he was explaining his ouds, going into a bit more detail about the process behind distilling the oil and how he uses it in his fragrances. And I kind of occurred to me that, you know what, I have one of these decants, and I've had this one for a really, really long time. I've had this decant for 6 years, which is kind of crazy. It's quite a strong fragrance. You don't have to use too much, and that probably is one of the reasons why I've had it for such a long time. So I wanted to go back, wear it, and just remind myself about this fragrance. And it is quite a beautiful fragrance. You can see from just the cap the staining that it can leave, so you got to be careful. There is a crystal version of this where he's taken out all of the color so it doesn't stain, so you got to be careful. This is a very exotic fragrance, very smooth. I feel like the fragrance has smoothed out over time. I feel like rose is the main player in this one. There is some sweeter earthy notes in there, slightly musky and very enveloping and sensual notes that later develop. I don't feel like Oud is the main player. It feels more fruity, from a dried fruit accord with some florals and some sweet woody cashmere style notes, you know, in terms of that effect. It's very luxurious. I don't feel Oud is the main player in this one at all. I'm sure it's contributing to the blend. Quite strong. Definitely don't need to spray too much of this one. And it was definitely quite a powerful, strong start to the week. So yeah, that in terms of strong fragrances, that continued going into Tuesday. Tuesday I wore a fragrance that I'm testing from the brand Frederic Malle. I've got a little, I think these are 3 ml. I think these are little 3 ml. So it comes out like this, of this cardboard thing. Oh, is that upside down? Yeah, so this one is Music for a While. Carlos Benaim is the perfumer that Frederic Malle worked with. And this fragrance, I tried it out when it first came out. You know, the autofocus doesn't always work on this damn thing. But yeah, so I tried this fragrance when it first came out, and I was a little bit unsure as to about this fragrance. So I tried it on in paper, and then I did a couple of sprays on my neck and the chest area, and that was too much. It turned into a sickly sweet fragrance and kind of put me off a little bit, but I knew there was something in there that I liked from this pineapple note. And so I've gone back to it, and I'm wearing this in moderation. I'm spraying the wrists. I'm maybe doing just a tiny spray on the chest, and that allows this wonderful pineapple note to come through. Yes, there is some sweetness later on, but if you spray less, it doesn't become overwhelming and kind of annoying. One thing I really like about Frederic Malle, excuse me, is that they have pretty good YouTube videos. So there was one that he did with the perfumer Carlos Benaim, and they explained their sort of the production, or not the production, but the whole creative process behind this fragrance. And one thing that I really liked that they said is that once they added the pineapple note, everything was viewed through a yellow filter. And I definitely think that's a great way to describe this fragrance. I think it works very, very nicely with the lavender coming through quite prominently, and it's quite unusual fragrance for me. Yeah, it's certainly a different fragrance in the Frederic Malle lineup, and just generally of fragrances that I've tried. I wouldn't say I'm like in love with this fragrance, but I think it's an interesting one, that's for sure. Definitely looking to trying it out a little bit more. Okay, so going on to Wednesday, and it pretty much was a Roja Parfum day. I was at work, but in the evening, I went to the opera for the first time, which was pretty cool. I went to see Madame Butterfly here in London, in the Coliseum, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not really typically into those types of things like musicals, but I really like what they did on the stage, and it's definitely a new experience that I'd like to go back and check out the opera. It's not something I thought I would be into or go to, but it's good to try out new things in life. So during the day, I tried. I got a sample here of Elysium from the Parfum Cologne range, and I don't know if it is my skin or whether it's just the fragrance, but I don't think this fragrance really works for me on my skin. I have come to the end of my decant, so I'm going to do a full review. There's something quite off. It smells really good on paper, and I've tried it on paper a few times, and I like the way that the fruity aspects come through and the zesty lime notes come through, but on my skin, I feel like it turns. So during the day, wasn't the great day wearing this fragrance, and I don't think I've ever really enjoyed this fragrance when I've tried it on skin, which seems to be really different to what a lot of other people are saying from the majority of the views anyway. So yeah, not great. I will review that one soon. But in the evening, I was going to the opera, so I wanted to wear quite a bold fragrance. So I went with this atomizer that I got as a free purchase from the rojaparfum.com, the website, and I went with Enigma. This is the Parfum Cologne version. The opening is just absolutely incredible. It's very dense, it's very complex. You've got that beautiful cognac note in there, sweet, a little bit of touch of vanilla in there, slightly earthy, and you've got that like kind of labdanum, benzoin-y, vanilla kind of base in there, which is really lovely. It performs nicely on my skin, and I think it's just a great fragrance. I've mentioned it before on my channel that I prefer the older, now discontinued Eau de Parfum, but the Parfum Cologne fits. It does the job. Let's just say that. Okay, so on Thursday, I went with a fragrance that I recently picked up from the brand Parfum MDCI, and this one is Chypre Palatin. It really is a step back in time here. It feels very, very vintage. I'm getting a lot more orange from this fragrance. It kind of reminds me of an old fashioned, which is a really great drink, that sort of that whiskey with orange, a little bit sweet. It feels like I can see actually the Chypre qualities. I can see why it's called Chypre Palatin. Those qualities do come through, the mossiness of this, but I feel like it's got some oriental vibes going on as well. Very complex, very strong. Not a fragrance that I like to wear too much around here. I like to maybe hit up the wrists, maybe back of the neck, and that creates a wonderful bubble. Definitely a more potent fragrance, and it lasts throughout the day and throughout the night. And that night wasn't a great night for me. I went to the Arsenal match. We got knocked out by Olympiacos, so I was very, disappointed and freezing because it was really cold that night. But that's the Arsenal for you, always letting us down. But yeah, it's a period of transition, as it's always been. Anyway, enough about football. Let's get back to fragrances. And Friday was a good day, and I decided to go with a Tom Ford fragrance that I absolutely love. It's really more of a fragrance to wear at night, like evening times, because of the style and because of the performance. I don't find fantastic on this. It lasts, 5-6 hours, which is great if you're going on a night out. But if you want all-day performance from Tom Ford Noir, yeah, all day it just doesn't work on my skin. But the scent, because the scent is so good, you know, that's the main focal point I think it should be. I'm kind of okay with the decent, okay-ish performance. Wow. There was a video recently by George, the Fragrance Apprentice, a fellow UK reviewer, and he mentioned that this reminds him of a foggy English countryside. I see where he's coming from. For me, what I've actually always thought with this fragrance is that it reminds me of, or I get the image of dark purple smoke. And specifically, you know, if you wanted to pair this fragrance with a particular bar in London, there is a really nice setting which I think this fragrance works really well. There's a hotel in London called the Sanderson Hotel, and inside they have the Purple Bar, which is a very dark, there's lots of plush velvet, purple sofas and purple lights, and it's very, very low level lighting. And the bar is illuminated, so that creates a nice sort of effect in the room. It's a really cool bar to just chill and have a cocktail. And Tom Ford Noir is a great fragrance for that type of occasion. So that was Friday, and we're going on to the weekend. So this weekend has been pretty busy for me. A friend of mine was down in London. We went out to eat. We went out to smoke some cigars. I went out to see DJ Shadow. He was performing here in London on his. He's on doing a tour of Europe or a world tour or something like that, and it was a great show. So Saturday, I went with a fragrance that has been getting a lot of negative feedback here on YouTube. I picked up a couple of samples. Actually, managed to get a couple of samples off the new Dior Homme, and they have almost, you know, like relegated Dior Homme, the original, and calling it original, and they've come out with this new interpretation. I had tried it in Boots actually. There's like a chain of chemists here, but they also have a decent selection of fragrances. So I saw the bottle there, and I tried it on sometime last week. So I've tried it on from the full-size bottle, and now I'm trying it from the samples. And I think the fragrance is okay. You know, I think it works. It will work in certain scenarios where you're just looking for a decent, closer to the skin fragrance that is going to work in scenarios like going for a job interview. If you're a person who's like a doctor or a nurse and you work with people, you want to wear a fragrance, but you don't want to be like projecting all over the place. Dior Homme works well. It's got really, really a lot of similarities to Bleu de Chanel, the eau de toilette anyway, to me. But it lacks a lot of body and it lacks a lot of personality. But it's an okay fragrance. I don't mind it on my skin. I need to give it a bit more of a chance. But I'm kind of like, I don't dislike it, but I'm definitely not in love with it. And that seems to be the feedback that a lot of people are giving. In fact, a lot of people really hate it. So yeah, I'm kind of like, okay. So that was Saturday, and today, Sunday. So I wore a fragrance from Dior Homme, and I thought, you know what? I want the full feeling of Dior Homme. I want it powerful. I wanted it to last me all day, which still there, going strong. Probably, where are we now? 8-9 hours later, and I had to go with this absolute beauty that is Dior Homme Parfum. Very, very beautiful fragrance, lovely and dense, lots of cocoa. I still think there's a lot of cocoa notes in here that is quite prominent. There's some wonderful floral notes in here, kind of in a similar vein to Tom Ford Noir. I don't think they're, in style, I don't think they're too dissimilar. I think Dior have done a great job with this. It's a bold fragrance, but I think it's also very quite sensual, I think, at times, and it's just a fantastic option. If you don't like the powdery, maybe iris sweeter side of Dior Homme Intense, this is actually a really great option. And yeah, rounded off the week nicely. I thought it was quite an interesting week in terms of fragrances. A mixture of like niche and designer, samples, decants, and full-size bottles. And it's always interesting, you know, trying out new fragrances, trying to figure out accords that maybe you're not used to, or diving into fragrances that you had forgotten about and sort of reliving that experience again. So yeah, guys, what have you been wearing this week? Let me know. Do you know any of these fragrances? Give me your opinions on them. And as I said, if you've got any questions for me, I will be happy to answer them in an upcoming Q&A. So yeah, hit the like button and subscribe and hit the notification bell and all that stuff that people tell you to do. It's your choice though. If you like what you see, drop a comment, follow if you want to. Anyway, I'll thanks for the support, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.